You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Coach, we were able to have the rookie portion of training camp this year. I'm always curious, when you know that you've got prospects coming in, what is the balance between getting them acclimated, getting them feeling good, but also challenging them and getting them ready for main camp?
Well, I think that's a great word that you used, was acclimated. We wanted to get the kids acclimated with 2 practices before the first 2 rookie games against Vancouver, and gives them an opportunity to feel comfortable moving forward into main camp. And I was happy with what the players did in the 2 practices in the 2 games, and it was good to see, because when they get into main camp like today, the speed and the intensity picks up just because they're skating with the NHL players and more American League players, and it was good to see our guys take a step. So from that standpoint, moving forward, they'll have another practice tomorrow, and hopefully they can get into an exhibition game and show their stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've been speaking with Coach Tato had over the years in the ECHL, and something that he said that always resonated with me is that he's been with the ECHL for a while, and with the Kraken organization felt that there's a lot more continuity than he was used to, being able to have conversations and even weekly meetings at times with the AHL and NHL. How do you see that playing out when you have a training camp? How does that impact the players, and how does that make things a little more manageable from the coaching perspective?
Well, it's important to have that continuity with your American League team and the ECHL all working together. And I think that's where Troy Bodie, our GM, does a great job of including Tad in our training camp and keeping him up to speed. And Troy watches a lot of the games that the Kansas City Mavericks are playing. And obviously we do a good job of supplying some players for him on AHL deals, and call up players for in case we have guys called up to Seattle. So I think through the whole system, I think you're seeing it more every year. It's starting to grow with that ECHL team and the responsibilities, because not only can they lose up their affiliated players, they can lose up free agents to any other team. So we want to make sure that we have a great place for these kids to go play and learn. And at the end of the day, who's going to get sent down there, we don't know. That depends on the players' play, and depends on injuries, depends on numbers. And if there's no injuries in Seattle, we'll probably see a few more players in CV. That means a few more players may go down to Kansas City. But if there's injuries in Seattle right away, then we'll have some players from CV come up to Seattle, and so on. So I think it's important to have that continuity. And Tad's been great. I reach out to Tad during the summer. We have conversations. Tad will be flying into our training camp on September 28th to the October 1st. So it's important that we make him feel part of the process, and so far it's been a smooth transition for all 3 teams.
And of course, you talk about that, thinking about all 3 teams, and in a year where we know there's going to be players that are going to the Olympics, some that have been named, some that are hopefuls still. I would imagine that pipeline is really going to be moving in a year like this, when there's guys that will be away for a little bit, but also, of course, we know injuries are going to happen, etc. How do you think the players are able to, again, utilize that continuity to just make sure that they always are setting the goals at the right time, peaking at the right time in the season?
Well, the big thing is these players are wired to perform at every given day, right? That's part of their job, is be ready for a call-up. And when players get sent down to us, we have to make sure they're in the right frame of mind to perform and get them back into that right frame of mind to be in the call-up situation. Are they happy? No. But at the end of the day, they're part of the organization, and they have to breathe and live the culture of all 3 organizations. And that's probably the toughest conversation for anyone to have in Seattle or CV or KC. If you have to move a player and send them down, obviously they don't like that. But that's what development's all about. If there's an Olympic year where players have to get called up and fill the roster, that's why we're there. But if you look at the prospect pool that we have coming to CV, we're going to have anywhere from 12 to 14 first or second year pros, and that bodes well for the Seattle Kraken, because you got Yanni Newman knocking on the door, you've got Jacob Melanson, you got Ryan Winterton, Oscar Molgard, Ty Nelson. All these guys are knocking at the door for the National Hockey League. So knowing that we have a great affiliation with CV and another great affiliation with KC only bodes well for the goal of the Seattle Kraken to win the Stanley Cup.
Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick it off with a can't wait and can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, a lot of people use FanDuel in so many different ways, including for player props. You know, I try to let you know about the futures bets, bets on game day, things like that, for a same game parlay. You can even jump in live as the action is unfolding. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy, as my friend Ari Chambers might say, to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And from here, you know, the rookie portion of camp is all but finished, and there's the evaluation process changes, I would imagine, a little bit. So from your perspective, knowing that your first task will be with the AHL guys, you know, what does the rest of the camp look like for you, and what are the conversations on maybe even a day-to-day basis that you're able to have with the players that you're expecting to have full-time?
Well, one thing we'll do here is we will just kind of, just basically have a hey, how you doing conversation. How's the family? How's the wife? How's the kids? Mm-hmm. How was your summer conversation with a lot of these players? We want them to focus on making a great impression on the staff here. And that being said, our job is to support Lane and his staff. If they need anything until September 27th, we're here for them. Mm-hmm. I know we have 3 road games and 3 nights, and so there'll be a lot of travel for the coaching staff. So we'll help out whenever asked upon. And I think going forward here in practices, we'll see some of our coaches on the ice just kind of, starting to build those relationships with the players in the organization, especially some of the young kids, and trying to get them in a good spot to perform well.
This episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, etc. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface. And you can use it on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So thank you. I am the target audience. If you put off organizing your finances, I feel read by this ad read. Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Thank you, Monarch Money. Thank you. I've been using Monarch Money for a while. I've talked to you before about the data visuals, the snapshots, the dashboards. The cash flow dashboard is huge for me as I'm thinking about bringing on other content creators, such as Joe. We've had Ava come on board in some capacities and hope to have it expand as the Locked On Kraken show, of course, is a part of our larger Black Rosy Media contracts and enterprises. And so you don't want to let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. And so trying Monarch Money might work for you just as it's worked for me. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Absolutely. And then, finally, Coach, what is the approach that you like to take when it comes to how you attack the day-to-day? What do your players know to expect from you?
Well, that's the big thing. So part of our goal, part of my philosophy as coach is to create an environment, create a culture that allows these players not only to develop, but perform at the highest level. I think that's one thing that our staff does a great job. We have a lot of fun. We're very dialed in. Our job is to focus on the kids, and culture is huge. I think Dan and his staff did a great job the first 2 years in CV building that winning culture, and it just carried over to last year. Now it's a little bit different because we're a lot younger, but still there's a culture in place here to compete, to push, to try and progress and develop to try and get to the National Hockey League. Not every player is going to make it, but when they come out of CV, we're not only trying to develop hockey players, we're trying to develop young men, and I think it's important that the message that we sell or we portray as a coaching staff is effective in their everyday life.
Absolutely.